This is Tony Kent, and this is another episode of Tony Kent Writes and Cross-Examines. And I'm also knocking my screen all over the place just as I speak to you. Today, putting himself into the metaphorical witness box for a very, very ungrilling form of grilling will be Craig Robertson. Craig Robertson is the author of 8 critically acclaimed books and one that's about to be, no doubt, critically acclaimed. That includes 7 books in the Winter and Narey series that began with Random, and the last book in the series for now, The Photographer. And then today, because I'm going to pretend that we're recording this on the day that you're looking at it, today, the 11th of June, is the day of release for Craig's 9th book, second standalone, Watch Him Die. So I think we'll probably be talking a little bit about that within the next 15 minutes. So Craig, how are you?
I'm very well, very well. Dragged myself in out of the sunshine, a beautiful Scottish day. Yeah, good.
You say a beautiful Scottish day, but we're not going to feel too sorry for you because you spend half of your time in LA as well. So you're not like most Scotsmen. You see a lot more sun than most Scotsmen.
Yes, I see a lot more sun than I used to do. I spent a lot of time in California. Not so much right now. Obviously, lockdowns put a stop to that for the moment. But yeah, generally speaking, maybe something like 3 months of the year in California and 9 months in Scotland, plus all sorts of book traveling around it. So yeah, there's worse ways to spend your time.
Exactly. So we're not going to feel sorry for you for 15 minutes of Scottish sun.
That's fine. I deserve it.
I'm sitting here looking out of a window, actually, over the screen. I keep getting distracted by exactly the same thing. It's about 26 degrees here. And it's absolutely lovely. So tell us a little bit then about Watch Him Die. You're obviously still going with the Winter Narey series. That hasn't ended, has it?
It hasn't, except it's slightly different. Winter is not really in this book very much. It's more Narey. So the book is split kind of like my life halfway between Glasgow and Los Angeles. So the book is 50-50 in each city. Cops on either side of the Atlantic find a video feed of a young man dying online, and they know there's no way to identify him, there's no way to find him, there's no way to save him, not without the help of a killer. And the only way he will cooperate is if he can watch him die.
Ooh,
that's the blurb.
That's a great blurb, I have to say. Now, I've heard you read, I think I've heard you read from this one, Noir at the Bar. A couple of weeks ago, and it was absolutely chilling what you read then, and putting it into context of what you've just said. That's some book. I'm a little bit scared by that straight away. So, I mean, the books you write are relatively dark books, aren't they? They're very, very much sort of steeped in proper crime.
It's weird because people do say that, and it always comes as a slight surprise to me, but maybe that's because I'm kind of dark to start with. They are proper crimes. There's always there's not always a murder. Photographer was murder free, but they're always dark psychologically. I tried to delve into the darkest recesses, the human soul, and it's where I like to spend my time.
Well, it's also you also have the benefit of being an extremely good writer in the sense of, unlike some of us, the stuff that you write could be looked at as literature as well as crime. And when you can bring some of the dark understanding of the psychology to that and write it the way you do, I mean, it's a special talent.
Well, thank you very much for saying so, but and also for putting yourself down completely at the same time. No, I think what we all do is literature, and we all take a slightly different approach to how far we go into that. But it does annoy me sometimes that crime fiction gets a bit of a bad rep for not being up there in terms of its prose, and it should be up there, and certainly the best of it is definitely right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree entirely.
Yeah, the subjects we tackle are different, or the way we tackle those subjects by using a crime as a basis. But after that, no, I would put the likes of Val or Denise Miner up there with anyone in terms of that. Yeah.
Well, you've just, in fact, I read just the other day, I'm not sure, was it for the Record of the Scotsman? You did the 10 top.
Oh, the Guardian, yes.
It was the Guardian, was it? The 10 top Scottish authors. And there's not crime writers, and there's not a single one in that list that isn't absolutely worthy of being called literature. It's a snobbery.
It is a snobbery indeed. That was a really tough list to put together because getting 10 was easy.
Yeah.
Leaving people out. 10 out.
Yeah.
I've lost a few friends over this last week, but that's
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So we've got the book coming out in reality next week, but we're going to say today.
Yep, today.
That's a standalone, but it does have Narey in it.
Yeah, it's slightly. It's not quite a standalone. It's in the series, but just not completely in the series. So it's like my first book, Random, was not in the series but contained Narey. I just like to keep it confusing.
Yeah, it's a good way of going about doing it, isn't it? It is what it is. I mean, the stuff that I write is similar in its own way that it jumps around. You know, you've got my first book had 2 main characters. The second book, only one of them was in it. The third book, they're both in it again, and the one I'm writing now, the other one is in it again. It keeps it fresh. Yeah,
I think you've got to do that because I want to be interested in the book first of all. So to do that, hopefully, if I'm interested, everyone else will be interested. I kind of think, if I'm being honest, I've written 9 standalones. They're just kind of disguised as a series. Because they all tackle completely different things, but they have characters that run through them. So it's a bit of a pretendy series, I think.
Well, I think I kind of regard my own in the same way. You know, each one of them is kind of a one-line elevator pitch idea that's completely standalone in its own way. It just so happens that that thing is happening within the life of somebody who you've seen other things happen to. So it's not connected to the previous ones, apart from they lived through that and now they're living through this.
I don't tend to think what are Narey and Winter going to do next. I think, what do I want to write, and then how do I get them into the story?
Yeah.
So the story comes first, and there is an arc for them throughout the books, but nothing that could stop people reading in any order that they wanted to.
Yeah.
But you never want to exclude someone. You'll be the same. You don't have to read 1 through 3 in order.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, it would be lying to say that the people who read them in order don't get a little something extra. I think in the films they call them Easter eggs, don't they? They're little something extra because you'll see something that has happened back then will now have an effect 3 books later. But it doesn't have an effect that means you can't read the book if you haven't read the previous ones. I mean, it's fundamentally important. We'd be doing something resoundingly uncommercial if we were writing things that said, no, you must read number 1 first.
Yes, I mean, I think one of the trickiest things always is to do that exposition thing, and there's a balance between telling new readers what they need to know, but not boring old readers with things they already know.
Yeah.
So there's a little tricky line to follow in that, but come and read any of them at any time.
No, absolutely. It's the way forward, and certainly your books. They deserve to be read. Now, we're talking earlier on about you like the darkness, you like the sort of dark psychology of things. I'm sure anyone who looks you up can see this, but hopefully I'm introducing you to some people that haven't looked you up. You spent 20 years, didn't you, reporting on some really serious stuff. I mean, you were a frontline major news reporter in Scotland for a long time.
Yeah, it was a great apprenticeship for going on to write books and for learning about people probably as much as anything else. I did some crime reporting, but not that much. It was more dealing with people. The last 10 years in particular, if there was any terrible major story, I would be the one that would get sent in. I became like the newspaper's angel of death. You know, I was in there interviewing people who'd suffered really terrible things and suffered them in a very high profile, very public way. And that is very different from a very private grief. And a lot of that feeds in to my books, because I've interviewed people who've lost families in something like 9/11.
Yeah.
And everybody wants a piece of them and wants to know what it's like. But to them, this is not a public event or a national event. You know, it's a very private thing. They lost their son. I'm still very good friends with a couple I went out to the States to interview. And they don't regard it as anyone else's business. You know, that was their son that died that day, as well as everyone else. So things like that you use and you learn from. So a lot of time covering some very, very bad things. Yeah.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't write the sort of the darkness that you do. I write slightly more a popcorn kind of thing, and that's not putting myself there. And I love popcorns, and I love popcorn books and just things that are just pure high octane entertainment. But I can completely understand what you mean, because obviously what I do for it as a day job is I'm generally in the Old Bailey or some other criminal court defending somebody for always very, very serious stuff. And so I've been in some cases with murders and things like that. And I know exactly what you mean, because a few kind of front page murder cases where you see this family that have lost somebody, and quite often they concentrate on the family more when it's a child, which is perhaps even worse. And this family that have lost somebody, suddenly they've become newsworthy in their own right, and there's people outside photographing them as they walk into court. And I've always thought that's just, it's just, how must they feel about that? I mean, they've had the most important thing in their life ripped away from them, and then they've had the privacy and the dignity of the manner in which they can grieve continually ripped away from them. And
they've had zero training for this.
Yes.
Zero training and no preparation for it. So not that it's easy for anyone, but if celebrities of any nature or politicians, they've been prepared for this. They've had years of getting ready. But if you're put into it like that, it's a horrendous thing. And I think one of the things that good crime fiction does well is remembers these people as well as, the murder or whatever it is we're writing about. But yeah, you will have had some very useful insight into the human psyche and how strange people can be and how dark people can be. And it is very much a case, I'm sure, that truth is stranger in fiction.
Truth is much stranger than fiction. I mean, my second book, Marked for Death, there's a character in it who's based upon a real character, a real person. The serial killer, bad guy of the book is based upon a real person, and the entire scenario is based on something that almost happened. And when it almost happened, I just thought that'd be a good story if it had happened. Somebody who was about to be released, and then they looked for his cell and they found a kill list of everyone from his trial that he regarded as an enemy. And this guy, I'll tell you the story really, really briefly, even though this is your interview. This guy had basically been set up by the police. They wanted to give him a good hiding. And it's in the 80s, back when this sort of stuff happened. They had him in handcuffs. They left the door of his cell open, and they let it, so that he tried to escape. And he tried to escape. He was handcuffed. He just happened to run into 10 riot-geared police officers. I mean, what a surprise! What a coincidence! He put 6 of them in hospital. He was in handcuffs, and they were in riot gear. He put 6 of them in hospital. He went to hospital himself. He's not Superman, but still 6 of them. And I had to leave that out of the book, because that sounds ridiculous. If you put that in a book, if I was reading that in a book, I'd put the book down. And so, truth is stranger than fiction. You're absolutely right.
Because you would think even Jack Reacher is going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I know a very similar case in a prison near me. Very similar. 8 went in to try and get this one guy out of his cell, and and because they're forced into a fairly narrow space, he handled all of them.
Exactly. Well, it becomes one at a time, but then it's one at a time while they're climbing over the guy in front. So he ends up with it. If he can take the first guy, he's got a bit of an advantage. But let's talk. Sorry, I need to talk to you about one. We're running out of time in about 2 minutes, so I have to talk to you about something that I'm sorry if everyone does it, but I love black pudding, and I've just discovered that you are a judge of the World Black Pudding Competition.
I was at Mortagne Perche in Normandy. Went over. It's a few years ago now. I've done a lot of black pudding travel. I'm just a little bit obsessed with it. But I was a judge at the World Championships, which was surreal and great fun. And my remaining ambition, perhaps, is to be a chevalier of the black pudding. You can become a knight of the black pudding.
Really? They take it seriously over there.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list too.
Am I right in thinking they have a lot more grain in it over there?
A lot more
grain?
It varies completely in place to place. So some will have none. If you go into Spanish black pudding, the Murcia is just completely different from the French boudin noir. If you go to Ireland, it might be more. If you go to Lapland, they use reindeer blood. It's there's no end to it. It's the most amazing food stuff.
It is. I mean, and it's a superfood. So when you're eating it, you're getting healthier and healthier and healthier with every bite.
You're getting healthier in lots of ways and getting slightly less healthy in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a superfood that comes with its own kryptonite.
I have a slight problem these days, and I'm almost vegetarian. I've eaten meat once this year.
Right.
But black pudding doesn't have meat in it, so I reckon that's okay.
I was going to say, I mean, no problem with vegetarianism, but vegetarianism when you're an aficionado of black pudding, that's got to be hard.
The only thing. So, but in theory, you can make a black pudding without harming the animal. You could just do a little transfusion, and you're fine.
That's a great thing to tell yourself. And on that note, Craig, we are running out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go. Thank you very much.
Tony,
good luck with Watch Him Die, and everybody should be getting that. You all heard why. If that didn't persuade you, nothing's going to persuade you. Craig, thanks very much, and Tony, go and enjoy your Sunday.
And you.
Cheers, bye.